My name's Eli. I'm 23, and I just graduated with a double major in computer science and business. I was the first in my family to even attend college, let alone graduate top of my class. For most families, that might be a reason to celebrate. For mine, it was just another day, unless, of course, it was about my cousin Amanda's new Etsy store or my brother Jake's weekend football league. Then suddenly everyone had time, energy, and money to spare. But me finishing 4 grueling years with scholarships, late-night internships, and part-time jobs? That barely earned a grunt. Still, I tried. I'd always tried. Growing up in a house where attention was currency, I learned to overcompensate. I took care of the yard when Dad's back gave out. I helped Mom with groceries when Jake forgot again. And I even covered the heating bill last winter when Amanda accidentally overdrafted her account and couldn't pay her share of rent. I played the role of the good son, the helpful cousin, the quiet achiever. But after my graduation ceremony came and went with zero family in the stands, no call, no text, not even a late-night congrats, I decided to take one last swing at believing I mattered. I spent the little savings I had left booking a rooftop venue downtown. It wasn't 5-star, but it had string lights, a view of the skyline, and a built-in speaker system. I ordered everyone's favorite food, Jake's teriyaki wings, Amanda's vegan flatbread, even Grandma's weird obsession with coconut shrimp. I didn't want gifts or speeches. Just a night. One single night where I got to feel seen. I even made digital invites, complete with a Google Calendar reminder. I triple confirmed with everyone a week before, then again the night before. Every "can't wait" and "you deserve this" message gave me a flicker of hope I wish I'd snuffed out sooner. The night of the party, I got there an hour early. I wanted to make sure the food was set, the drinks were chilled, and the playlist I'd obsessed over was running smooth. I wore the one nice suit I owned, black, slim fit, barely clinging to the shoulders I'd been stress shrinking under for months. I stood by the entrance, smiling at every elevator ding like a Labrador hearing car keys. And then, nothing. 5 minutes turned into 30. 30 into an hour. The catering staff gave me polite nods, unsure if they should start cleaning up or wait. I kept glancing at my phone, refreshing messages, checking traffic reports, even convincing myself that maybe, just maybe, they had planned something bigger and this was all a setup. At exactly 8:47 p.m., when I was 3 Sprite cans deep and wondering if I should just take a cab home, my phone buzzed. It was a photo. Amanda had tagged everyone in it. Jake, Mom, Dad, Uncle Ron, even Grandma. They were all in matching pajamas, lounging on my parents' living room couch with pizza boxes stacked high and blankets thrown everywhere. The caption? Family movie night. We needed this. My fingers froze on the screen. I zoomed in. My grad photo, the one I had mailed to every relative weeks earlier, was crooked on the wall behind them, half covered by a balloon bouquet left over from Amanda's last soft launch party. My mouth went dry. There was no mistake. They weren't late. They weren't stuck in traffic. They were never coming. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I just sat down on one of the rented folding chairs and let the quiet hum of the city drown out the silence in my chest. I scrolled back through every message, every empty promise, every half-hearted "we're so proud of you" that led to this moment. The food went cold. The venue manager gave me a sad little nod and said he'd waive the overtime charge. I didn't answer. I just nodded back. When I got home, my own apartment, paid for by the freelance gigs I juggled while still acing my finals, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the ceiling. The same ceiling I used to imagine big things under. Things like promotions, trips, and celebrations where my name wasn't forgotten halfway through a toast. And then it hit me. Hard. Like a switch flipping in a dark room. They needed me more than I ever needed them. That's when I pulled out my laptop. I logged into every shared utility account, electricity, internet. Even that little streaming bundle I'd added Amanda to last year because Hulu was too expensive for her right now. I had set it all up in my name. Every bill, every convenience. All because it made me feel like I was part of something. I paused for a moment. It wasn't about revenge, not exactly. It was about clarity. About realizing that no matter how many pizza nights I covered or errands I ran, I would never be more than a background character in a movie they cast themselves in. I sent a single group text. Good luck covering next month's bills without me. Then I blocked every number. Every single one. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. Because 3 days later, the silence cracked. And when it did, it came with screams. It started with a Facebook status from my mom. One of those dramatic, cryptic rants she thinks makes her look like a stoic martyr, but just reeks of self-pity and guilt-tripping. Some people forget who was there for them when they had nothing. Just remember, karma's real. No tags, no names. But the comment section blew up within minutes. Aunt Linda chimed in with a popcorn gif. Uncle Ron dropped a spill the tea meme. And Amanda, because of course, replied with, "Hope they realize family isn't optional. We're all we have." I watched it unfold with the detached interest of someone flipping through a magazine they didn't plan to buy. Part of me expected someone, anyone, to message me directly. Maybe Jake with a half-hearted, "Hey, everything okay?" Or even Dad, pretending he didn't know what was going on. But no, silence. Until day 4. That morning, my phone lit up with a call from a number I recognized but hadn't seen in months, my dad's work phone. I let it ring out. Then it rang again. And again. Then my mom's cell. Then Amanda. Then a random text from Jake's girlfriend. "Hey, I think there's some confusion. Did something happen?" I ignored them all. But the one that made me laugh, a bitter, sharp laugh, came at 2:19 p.m. My dad, texting from his usual number now. "Why is the internet shut off?" I'm trying to log into work. No greeting. No, "Hey Eli." No mention of the party, no apology, no even slight acknowledgement of what had been done. Just a complaint. A demand. A reminder that in their eyes, I wasn't a son or brother. I was tech support. I didn't reply. I wanted to. Oh, how I wanted to. I drafted at least 3 different responses, some angry, some sarcastic, one with nothing but a link to a therapist directory, but in the end, I just powered off my phone and went to the gym. That night, I came home to 3 voicemails, all increasingly frantic. Mom's voice, shrill and shaky. "We don't understand what's going on. Your father can't access his payroll account, and the smart TV won't work." Amanda says she can't even get into the group plan. "Did something happen? Can we talk, please?" Still no, "Sorry we ditched your party." Still no, "We should have been there." Just a long list of minor inconveniences that suddenly made me a priority. By the end of the week, I started receiving mail, actual letters, because I had blocked every digital contact method. The first one was from Grandma. A shaky, handwritten note with her flowery cursive that read, "Eli, I don't know what's going on, but everyone's upset. Please call your mother. She's been crying for days." Crying? Now she was crying? Where were the tears when I was sitting alone on that rooftop, staring at uneaten shrimp and untouched cake? Where were they when I sent my graduation photos to the family group chat and got 3 likes and 0 comments? Where were they when I begged them for just one night? Still, Grandma was the only one who didn't actively mistreat me. So I called her, and the conversation made everything so much worse. She answered on the first ring, relief spilling out like steam from a kettle. "Oh, thank heavens, Eli. You had me worried sick." "I'm fine, Grandma." "I know, honey. But your mother, she's a mess." "Is that so? She said you've been acting cold. That you lashed out, shut everything down without warning." I held the phone tighter. "Did she tell you about my graduation party?" Pause. "No," Grandma said slowly. "She said something about a scheduling mix-up. That you threw something last minute and didn't confirm with anyone." I could feel the heat in my cheeks. A mix-up? I had receipts, calendar invites, text confirmations. Heck, I even had a voice memo from Amanda saying, "We're all set for Saturday. I can't wait." And now they were telling Grandma I never invited them properly? "Grandma," I said, my voice shaking, "I sent them everything. Weeks in advance. I paid for the venue. The food. I planned it around their schedules." They didn't forget. They just chose not to come. Silence again. Then her voice, softer. "I believe you. But your mother swears." Of course she does. Because if she admits the truth, she'd have to admit she doesn't actually care unless it benefits her. That was when Grandma said something that stuck with me for days after. "You've always been the one trying the hardest, Eli. Maybe it's time you let them try for once." I didn't say much after that. We said our goodbyes. I promised to call her again, and I meant it. But I didn't unblock anyone. I didn't resume the payments. I didn't cave. Instead, I started living like I was free. Because for the first time in years, I was. Except, freedom has a funny way of stirring up desperation. And desperate people? They don't go down quietly. Because just 1 week later, I came home to something that changed everything. It was a Thursday mid-morning, sunny, calm. I had just gotten back from a client meeting, feeling oddly light for someone who just cut off half their family. There was a silence to my apartment now that I was starting to enjoy. No buzzing texts. No surprise favors. No guilt-shaded requests pretending to be love. Just me, the hum of the fridge, and my peace. That was until I saw the envelope taped to my door. At first, I thought it was just a delivery slip or some kind of neighbor notice. But it had my name written in thick, slanted marker across the front. No return address. No postage. Just taped there, like a child's attempt at being dramatic. I pulled it down slowly, tore the flap open, and pulled out a single sheet of printer paper. Typed, double-spaced, and angry. Eli, I don't know who you think you are, but this little tantrum has gone too far. We've been over backwards for you your entire life, and one missed party doesn't justify this level of disrespect. Your father can't work, Amanda lost access to her Hulu, and now Grandma's worried sick. You're punishing the whole family because of some imagined slight. It's childish and cruel. I hope you're proud. Mom, no, love. No, sincerely. No hint of remorse or reflection. Just a typed accusation like I was an employee they were threatening to fire. I almost laughed. Almost. But it sat in my hand like a slap that didn't sting right away, just left a deep ache that crept up my arm and curled around my throat. Because that was the moment I knew there would be no apology. No quiet realization. No heart-to-heart phone call or teary-eyed doorstep visit. No. My mother was not the type to admit she'd treated her child like an afterthought for years. She was the type to rewrite the story, hand it out like gospel, and hope everyone else sang along. And maybe they would have. Maybe Grandma and Jake and the rest would have swallowed it like every other half-truth she'd served them over the years. But this time, I wasn't staying quiet. That night, I took out my old graduation slides, the ones I had put together for the party no one came to. I opened a free website builder, dropped the photos in, added screenshots of every text message confirming the invites, the receipts for the rooftop venue, even the playlist I never got to play. Then I wrote a single caption at the top, "Here's the graduation party you all missed." Not because you forgot, but because I never mattered enough to show up for. I posted it to my social media. Locked comments. No tagging. Just a quiet, permanent record of what happened. Of how I celebrated alone. And it exploded. Friends from college I hadn't spoken to in months sent messages like, "This broke me," and "I can't believe they did this." Even people I barely knew shared it, calling it gut-wrenching and the most honest thing I've ever read. By morning, I had 3 missed calls from Amanda, 2 from Dad, and 1 voicemail from Mom, voice trembling now, but still not quite apologetic. "Eli, this is too far. You're humiliating us. Why are you doing this?" Why? Because for once, they were feeling what I had felt all my life. Unseen, unheard, unimportant. That weekend, the fallout reached new levels. Amanda showed up at my apartment. I didn't let her in. She banged on the door for 5 full minutes before shouting through the wood, "You're not the only one who's been through stuff. You know, we all have our issues." I stood on the other side, arms crossed, silent. "Are you seriously just going to ghost us forever? Over a party?" But it wasn't about the party. It had never been about the party. It was about every time they made me feel like I was an obligation instead of a choice. Every time I was expected to give, only to be told later that I was too sensitive when I needed something back. It was about the years I made myself small so they could feel bigger. And now that I had taken my voice back, they were scrambling. Not because they cared, but because their comfort was slipping through their fingers. A few days later, I found out they were trying to spin it. Jake made a post about family always being messy, but worth fighting for. Amanda commented, "People forget how much we did for him." I didn't respond. Not to Amanda's shouting. Not to Jake's social media damage control. Not to the stream of guilt-laced messages that trickled in. Each one trying to reframe the narrative. "You're being unfair. We're still family. This isn't how adults handle problems." The irony was almost funny, considering I had spent years handling everything for them. Like the only adult in the room while they played emotional hot potato with every problem that came up. But it wasn't enough to go silent anymore. That only worked until they twisted my absence into a tantrum, a phase, or worse, a betrayal. If I really wanted to move on, I had to take back control of the entire narrative. Not just with receipts, but with finality. So I started cutting cords they didn't even realize were still plugged in. First, the finances. I'd been quietly covering more than just utilities. A few years back, when I got my first decent-paying internship, Mom asked me to help out by adding their cell phones to my family plan, said it'd save everyone money. At the time, I didn't question it. I felt proud, honestly, like I was finally contributing in a way that mattered. That same year, Jake's used car broke down, and I co-signed on a newer model to help him land a delivery job. Dad said it was temporary, just until Jake built some credit. He never did. Amanda once asked me for a short-term loan to help float her rent until her online store took off. I gave her $1,200. She never brought it up again. They thought I forgot. They thought I'd never enforce it. They were wrong. I started by closing the phone account. No warning. No grace period. Just gone. I called the provider, explained the situation, and had all 4 lines. Mine, theirs, even Amanda's, terminated by the end of the week. I ported my own number to a new carrier under a business plan. Next, I called the car dealership and requested to revoke authorization on Jake's payments. Since the car was still technically in my name and his payments had been late multiple times, it wasn't hard to justify. Within 3 days, the car was flagged for repossession. And Amanda? I didn't even need to do anything. I had kept the Venmo receipts. I simply emailed her a formal letter outlining the debt, attached every transaction, and let her know I was handing the balance over to collections within 30 days unless she arranged a payment plan. No emotion, just math. I expected backlash, but what I got was panic. Jake called from a random number. Dude, what is this? They're trying to take my car. Mom left a voicemail sobbing. Eli, this is too far. You're ruining your own family. Amanda emailed, saying she felt blindsided and betrayed, that I was weaponizing money against people who loved me. Loved me? They didn't love me. They loved what I gave them. The money, the favors, the silence. And now that I was taking that away, they were gasping for air in a vacuum of their own making. I stayed silent for another week. Then, I drafted one final message. Not to them, to everyone else. I wrote a post, not angry, not vindictive, just honest. I talked about growing up in a family where I was expected to play the background, how my successes were downplayed, my milestones ignored, and my support taken for granted. I included no names, no petty details, just the full truth. About the graduation party, the debts, the utility bills I'd been covering for 3 years. I posted it on my personal blog, where only a handful of friends still followed me. But within days, it was shared, and then shared again. It didn't go viral, exactly, but it found its way into a lot of inboxes and group chats. I started getting messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Old teachers, classmates, even neighbors who remembered how devoted I was to my family. Most of them said the same thing. I had no idea. You always seemed like the strong one. That was the point. I had always seemed fine, because I was conditioned to make everyone else comfortable while I starved for validation. But no more. About 2 weeks after the post, Grandma called. I answered. She was quiet at first. Then she said something that took the breath out of my lungs. They've started talking. Really talking. Not at me, to each other. I think your silence did what your presence never could. She told me Mom had been forced to ask for help from her own siblings, most of whom had kept their distance for years. Jake had started working longer hours. Amanda had apparently begun offering flash sales on her store just to keep up with her credit card bills now that her rent was back to full price. It wasn't revenge. It was a reckoning. I didn't revel in their struggle, but I also didn't rush to fix it. For once, I wasn't the cleanup crew. I wasn't the safety net. I was free, and I didn't just sit in that freedom, I built on it. I used the emotional clarity to focus on my career. Launched my own freelance tech consulting firm. Picked up clients who respected deadlines, paid on time, and didn't treat me like an accessory to their own success. I traveled for work, Seattle, Boston, even a stint in Berlin. And every time I saw a rooftop venue or passed a family taking graduation photos, I didn't feel hollow anymore. I felt whole. I still talk to Grandma. She's the only one who never tried to gaslight me into silence. Sometimes she tells me little updates. How Jake's slowly growing up, how Mom's quieter now, how Amanda's finally learning what a budget is. I don't ask for these details, but I don't stop her either. I think she knows I'm not waiting for redemption. I'm just done. One day, maybe, years from now, someone will try to reach out, to apologize. Maybe they'll even mean it. But by then, I won't be waiting. Because healing didn't come from hearing sorry. It came from realizing I never needed it in the first place. My name's Leo, I'm 31, and until recently, I honestly thought I was over the whole family approval thing. I've got a decent job, a quiet apartment, and a solid circle of friends who know I'm not the loudest guy in the room. But I show up, I care, and I remember birthdays. Still, some part of me, maybe that last sliver of the kid I used to be, kept hoping that one day I'd walk into a room and my family would see me. Not as the quiet one or the dependable one, but as someone worth celebrating. My younger brother, Evan, has always been the golden child. Not in the bratty, obnoxious way. He's charming, quick with a joke, and frankly, he's the kind of guy people orbit. My parents adore him. Teachers adored him. His fiancée, Claire, definitely adores him. But the thing is, she never really seemed to like me. From the moment I met her, Claire had this way of making me feel optional, like the extra button on a shirt tag. Not rude, just coldly dismissive in a way that's hard to call out without sounding oversensitive. She'd interrupt me mid-sentence, roll her eyes when I shared a story, or make little comments like, "You're so quiet. Evan, how did you two even grow up together?" I brushed it off. I always brush it off. So when the invitation to their engagement party arrived, sent via group text, by the way, I debated whether to go. But I'm a sucker for family milestones, and I figured maybe it'd be different this time. I even spent an hour picking out a gift, a hand-carved wooden keepsake box engraved with their initials and the date of their engagement. Inside, I tucked a note with a short letter about love and memory and how the box could hold notes to each other, mementos, whatever made them feel anchored over the years. It wasn't expensive, but it was meaningful. It felt like something Evan would appreciate. Or used to. The party was held at Claire's parents' house, a sprawling white mansion with fairy lights, catered hors d'oeuvres, and a pianist playing soft jazz near the pool. Everyone was dressed like it was the Oscars, and I walked in wearing a pressed button-down and the nicest pair of shoes I owned, still managing to feel like a stand-in for someone who'd canceled last minute. I spotted Evan across the patio, arm draped around Claire, grinning as he chatted with her cousins. He waved when he saw me. Claire didn't. When I handed them the gift, Claire took it with both hands but didn't even try to hide her disappointment. "Oh," she said, with a polite grimace. "We were hoping for something useful. But hey, at least you tried." She gave a little laugh, the kind you toss out to soften a jab but make sure it still lands. Evan chuckled awkwardly and said, "It's nice, babe. Leo's thoughtful like that." Then Claire turned back toward the group around her, lifted the box a little like she was showing off a science fair project gone wrong, and said, "He's not really part of the wedding, more like a background character." Laughter rippled through the group. I felt my stomach drop, but my face didn't change. I just smiled. That same practiced, empty smile I'd worn 100 times before. I glanced over at my parents, hoping for a wince, a disapproving glance, something. But they just sipped their drinks, eyes on the pianist. My mom later told me it was just a joke, and that I needed to relax a little. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of polite nods and fading pride. I didn't speak much. I didn't eat much. I just waited until no one was looking, slipped out the side gate, and sat in my car for 10 minutes before I could even start the engine. I drove home on autopilot, my hands gripping the wheel tighter than necessary, replaying the moment again and again in my head, her voice, that smirk, the way nobody stood up for me. Something in me cracked. Not in an angry, explosive way. In a quiet, irreversible way. A line had been crossed, and this time, I wasn't going to smile through it. Over the next few days, I kept to myself. I ignored the group chat, muted the engagement party pics, thread, and focused on work. But one morning while scrolling through my phone on autopilot, something caught my eye. An ad for a historic estate venue just outside the city. A massive, ivy-covered manor turned event space. The very same one Claire had been raving about back at the party. I remembered her gushing about it to her bridesmaids, saying it had European charm and looked like Bridgerton. I clicked the ad. Available dates, pricing, booking policies. And then, something inside me whispered, "Why not?" I called. I scheduled a tour. I used up a vacation day and drove out to see the place in person. And it was even more stunning than I'd expected. Marble floors, wrought iron balconies, candlelit hallways. I walked the grounds with the property manager and asked all the right questions. Then I asked the important one. "Can I book a date just to hold it? Not for a wedding, just for an event. I might not even use it, but I'd like to reserve it either way." She smiled and said, "Absolutely." So I booked it. The same weekend Evan and Claire had been eyeing. I didn't tell anyone, not even my closest friend. I just waited. 2 weeks later, the group chat lit up again. "Touring the venue today. Can't wait to see our dream location." I didn't respond. That afternoon, While I was finishing up emails at work, a single photo popped into the chat. It was Claire, standing in front of the estate's massive iron gate, locked. The caption read, this is weird. Then another message. From Evan this time, anyone know why the venue is closed? We confirmed the tour. There was silence for a while. Then, one more message popped up. From Claire's bridesmaid, they said someone else reserved the full weekend. Paid in full. No openings. I didn't type a word. I just sat back in my chair and let the silence stretch. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my phone buzzing on the nightstand every few minutes as the group chat descended into mild chaos. I didn't open the messages. I didn't need to. I could imagine it all. Claire pacing in those designer heels, Evan trying to calm her down, her bridesmaids frantically looking up backup venues, and my parents probably whispering to each other, wondering if they should say something. But they didn't. No one called me. No one texted me directly. They just stewed. 3 days later, Evan finally reached out. He called while I was at work, and for the first time in years, I let it ring. Then I let it ring again. On the third try, I picked up. Hey, he said, voice careful. Got a second? I leaned back in my chair, put him on speaker, and kept scrolling through a spreadsheet. Sure. So, weird thing with the venue. He gave a nervous laugh. Apparently someone else booked it. Full weekend, non-refundable. Kind of messed up our plans. That sucks, I said evenly. It's a great spot. Yeah, it is. Claire's really upset. She'd been dreaming about that place. I remember. She said it looked like Bridgerton. He paused. Right. She also said the manager wouldn't give her the name of the person who booked it, but the dates matched the ones we were planning. Another pause. Leo, was it you? I didn't answer at first. Just let the silence hang. Leo, I finally said, do you remember what she said to me at the party? Evan hesitated. Come on, man. She was just joking. She called me a background character. In front of 30 people. While our parents sipped champagne and said nothing. He sighed. I talked to her about that. I said it wasn't cool. And what did she say? She said you're being dramatic. That it was just a little ribbing. Right. I could hear him breathing through the line, and I imagined him rubbing his forehead like he used to when we were kids and he'd broken something. Look, he finally said, can we talk about this? In person? Evan, I'm not mad, I said. I'm not looking for an apology. I just decided I wasn't going to let people walk over me anymore. You two wanted the venue. I wanted it too. I just moved faster. There was a long silence. Then he mumbled, you're serious. Dead serious. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He just said, Claire's going to lose it. I'm sure she will. Then I hung up. That weekend, I got an email from the venue. Apparently, someone had tried to sweeten the deal by offering to double the payment for the same dates, cash up front. But my reservation was locked in, and they were a professional establishment. They honored their contracts. A week passed. Then two. I heard through my cousin that Claire had completely restructured the wedding timeline. She started posting Instagram stories about reimagining their aesthetic and pivoting to a more sustainable ceremony. The captions were all cheerful, with sun emojis and soft filters, but the smiles looked tight, forced. They settled for a vineyard venue 45 minutes out of town. It was nice, but it wasn't the estate. As for me, I still hadn't told anyone what I planned to do with the space. See, I didn't book it just to block them. That wasn't the whole point. That would have been petty. I wanted something more than just revenge. I wanted a memory of my own. A space that was mine. So I started planning. Quietly. Carefully. I called in some favors from a few friends, a photographer I'd helped with his portfolio, a chef I'd once recommended to my boss, even an old friend who did event design on the side. I didn't tell them the full story, just said I wanted to host a small private gathering. Classy. Intimate. Personal. And then I got to work. I curated the guest list like a painter choosing the perfect brush strokes. No one from my family made the cut. But I invited the people who had actually shown up for me over the years, coworkers who'd checked in during hard times, college friends I hadn't seen in a while, even my old English teacher who once told me, "You're quiet doesn't mean you're small." The night before the gathering, I stood inside the grand hall of the estate, watching the florists finish their work and the catering team set down the last of the plates. It was beautiful, not just in a Pinterest perfect way, but in the way it felt, like something earned, like proof. I took a slow breath. And just as I was walking out the front doors to call it a night, I saw them. Evan, Claire, and my parents. Standing at the gate, Claire was mid-rant, gesturing at the building like it had personally insulted her. Evan looked like he'd been dragged there. And my parents, well, my mom had that same pinched smile she wore whenever I did something unexpected, like I was an embarrassing subplot in someone else's story. I didn't say anything. I just watched. Eventually, Claire noticed me. She stopped talking and stared, eyes narrowing. I smiled. Then I turned and walked inside, shutting the door behind me. Inside, the hall buzzed with quiet preparation, champagne glasses clinking, soft music playing from the string quartet rehearsing in the corner, the scent of fresh eucalyptus and roses thick in the air. I paused in the foyer, letting the door click softly behind me. No one asked why I'd stepped outside. No one noticed the four shadows watching from beyond the iron gate. And that's exactly how I wanted it. I walked through the venue slowly, taking in the flickering candles, the velvet runners, the hand-lettered place cards. Every detail had been carefully arranged, not for status, not for Instagram, but for meaning. Each guest had a table card with a quote they'd once told me that helped me through a dark time. The menu had my late grandmother's roast chicken recipe. Even the playlist was built from songs people had sent me over the years when I'd needed comfort. This wasn't a wedding. This wasn't a party. This was a reclamation. I didn't tell my guests the full story behind the event, but they understood the feeling. One of them, Maya, a friend from college who'd once lent me her coat in a snowstorm without blinking, pulled me aside near the hors d'oeuvres table. "This is beautiful, Leo," she said, her eyes scanning the candlelit ceiling. "What's the occasion?" I just smiled. "Gratitude." She nodded slowly, taking a sip of her drink. "I don't know what they did to you, but I hope they see this." "Who?" I asked. She gave me a sly look. "Whoever made you think you had to earn your place in the world." I chuckled. "They're trying to see it right now." Maya raised an eyebrow but didn't press. She never did. That's what I loved about her. I slipped away and stepped onto the second-floor balcony. From there, I could see the front gate through the ivy-draped railing. They were still there. All four of them. Evan had sat down on a stone bench, elbows on his knees. My dad was on his phone. My mom looked vaguely annoyed, probably that no one had offered her a chair. But Claire was pacing. She was furious. I leaned on the railing, watching the scene unfold like a play I'd seen a dozen times. Claire said something, jabbing her finger toward the building. My mom replied, and then Claire whipped around and marched straight to the gate, grabbing the intercom. The small speaker on the wall beside me crackled to life. "Leo, we know you're in there," Claire said, her voice clipped and sharp. "This is childish. We just want to talk." I didn't respond. The speaker buzzed again. "You don't even need the venue. You're not even getting married. You booked it just to spite us." Another pause. Then, more sharply, "Congratulations. You proved your point. You got your little moment. Now can we act like adults and move on?" I exhaled, slow and steady. From behind me, someone approached, the venue manager, Marielle. She'd been coordinating the whole thing with calm professionalism, and now she stood beside me, her heels silent on the polished floor. "Friends of yours?" she asked, glancing at the gate. Something like that. She didn't ask more. Just said, "They've been out there for almost 40 minutes. Would you like me to ask security to escort them off the property?" I hesitated. It would have been easy to say yes, but I shook my head. "No, let them stay. If they want to watch, let them watch." Marielle nodded. "Understood." As she left, the intercom crackled once more. "Leo," Evan's voice this time. Quieter. Almost pleading. "Can you just come talk to me? Please." I stood still. My knuckles were white against the iron railing. He added, "You don't have to keep punishing everyone." And that was the moment I realized something. They thought this was punishment. They thought everything I'd done, booking the venue, hosting the event, excluding them, was about them. It never was. I walked back into the ballroom, letting the soft music swallow the tension. People were seated now. Plates clinked. Laughter bubbled up from a table near the fireplace. I picked up my glass and stood near the head of the long dining table. No microphone. No speech. Just a quiet toast. "To all of you," I said, raising the glass slightly. "For seeing me when others didn't. For showing up when no one asked. For reminding me that being valued doesn't have to be loud." The room clinked in response, a soft chorus of crystal and kindness. And outside, beyond the gate, my family watched a party they would never be invited to. A celebration they couldn't interrupt. A night that wasn't about them. The night passed like something out of a dream. For the first time in years, I wasn't performing. I wasn't watching my words or shrinking into corners. or reading the room for signals to adjust my presence. I wasn't background. I laughed, real, full-bellied laughter. I danced a little, offbeat and grinning. I caught up with people I hadn't seen since graduation. And with every passing hour, the knot that had been twisted so tightly in my chest for years began to loosen. Somewhere between the chocolate mousse and the second round of wine, I stepped out onto the back terrace alone. The moon was high, hanging like a pearl over the treetops, and the quiet hum of crickets filled the stillness. My thoughts wandered, not bitterly, but curiously. For so long, I'd internalized this idea that if I didn't draw attention, didn't stir the pot, didn't complain, then I'd earn love. I played my part, waited my turn, assumed that grace would be reciprocated. But some people don't work like that. Some people only see value when you demand to be seen. And for once, I had. The celebration wrapped up just after midnight. Guests filtered out slowly, hugging me with warmth that caught me off guard. One older couple, my former boss and her wife, both told me it was one of the most thoughtful evenings they'd attended in years. My friend Jake clapped me on the back and said, "You're finally taking up space, man. About time." As the last guest trickled out, Marielle approached me in the now quiet hall. "Would you like to keep the gate locked for the night?" I nodded. "Yes. One more hour." She smiled softly. "It was a beautiful evening, Leo. Thank you. For everything." I stayed behind to help the staff clean. Not out of obligation, just habit. Folding napkins, wiping surfaces, restoring order. When we were done, the venue was quiet again, lit only by soft amber sconces and the occasional flicker of candlelight that hadn't yet burned out. It was just after 1 a.m. when I walked outside. The air was cooler now, and a light fog had started to settle on the grass. My car was parked near the entrance, but I didn't get in. Instead, I walked slowly to the iron gate. It was empty. They were gone. There were no voicemails, no texts, just silence. And I was okay with that. I slept like a stone that night, deep, dreamless. The next morning, I turned off my phone. No emails, no notifications, just the sound of the coffee maker in my kitchen and sunlight leaking through the blinds. It wasn't until later that afternoon that I finally turned my phone back on. 23 missed messages. None from Evan. 8 from Claire, ranging from furious, "You're disgusting," to condescending, "Hope your little pity party was worth it," to desperate, "Evan is heartbroken. You've made your point. Come to dinner so we can talk." One from my dad. Just a single line. "Call me when you're done with the theatrics." That one made me pause, not because it hurt, but because it didn't. For the first time, it didn't land. It was just a message from a man who had always watched from the sidelines, content to let things happen, never once stepping between me and the slow drip of disrespect. I didn't call him back. 3 weeks passed. I went back to work, back to the gym, back to a life that finally felt like mine. I wasn't angry. I wasn't plotting. I was just done. Then, a letter arrived. Not a text. Not an email. A real letter. In Claire's handwriting. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. "Leo, I'm writing because Evan won't. He's embarrassed. Humiliated, actually. You've always been the nice one, and somehow that made us think we could say and do anything, and you'd take it. I won't sugarcoat things. We made you feel small. I made you feel small. I thought it was harmless, but it wasn't. You showed us how much we underestimated you." Loudly, "Evan misses you. He won't say it, but I will. We both do. I won't pretend we deserve a second chance, but if you're willing to talk, really talk, I'll be there. Claire." I folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer. I didn't write back. A month after that, the wedding came and went. They kept it small. Photos were posted online. Pretty dresses. Matching suits. A vineyard backdrop. Not one mention of the drama, of course. Just filtered smiles and curated captions. I didn't go. I wasn't invited. And that was fine. Instead, that weekend, I flew to Edinburgh. It was a place I'd always wanted to see, and for once, I wasn't waiting for permission. I walked cobblestone streets alone. Ate meals in little taverns filled with strangers and stories. Took photos of fog-drenched castles and sent them to no one. On the last night, I sat at the edge of Calton Hill, watching the city lights flicker beneath the clouds. My phone buzzed again. A single message from Evan. "I'm sorry. I should have said something a long time ago. I should have defended you. I just thought you'd always be there. You don't have to respond. I just needed you to know." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I locked my phone, slipped it into my pocket, and watched the fog roll in. Some doors don't need to be slammed shut. Sometimes, They just stay closed. Quietly. Permanently. And sometimes, that's not bitterness. It's peace.